Welcome to the West Virginia Cryptids and Strange Encounters channel. Today I would like to share 4 paranormal stories sent to me through my West Virginia Cryptids and Strange Encounters Facebook page. Each story is an experience shared by someone right here in West Virginia. Fictional names will be used where needed for privacy. On to the first story. The Rocking Chair, sent in by Daniel. Many years ago I was living on an old farm in Harrison County. The farm and house which my experience took place is long gone now, but my experience has stuck with me for the last 50 years. It was a primitive, off-the-grid type of living for me at the time. The farmhouse had no electric, no running water. I slept on an old army cot and had a rocking chair for setting. My only companion was a small mixed-breed dog and my 12-gauge shotgun for protection. The only light I had to see by were some old oil lamps. One night I was sitting on the edge of my cot, preparing myself for a much-needed night of sleep, when I noticed movement in the corner on the other side of the room. I picked up the lamp to shine light in that direction. What I saw then was the rocking chair rocking on its own accord. This startled me a bit, but I quickly settled, thinking it had to have been my dog. That was my thought until I noticed my dog at the bottom of my cot with his hair all bristled up and staring at the chair. Then I heard it, the voice of who or what was rocking the chair. It was clear to me what it was saying. It was saying my name in a low, slow tone. Daniel. Daniel. I quickly grabbed my shotgun and took aim at the chair. I know. What the hell was I going to shoot? How could you shoot something you can't see? I sat on the cot the rest of the night, staring at the chair, not attempting to cross the room for the door, which was next to the chair. I was never so relieved to see the sun come up. I don't know why this experience happened to me. I'm just glad it only happened once. Saved by a Supernatural Force, sent in by Hank. It was many years ago. I was driving home from work and decided to stop by the local watering hole. It had been a long, hot day, so I had a couple of cold beers. I know that's a no-no, but it was the late 60s and it was a common thing back then. Anyway, after a couple beers I decided to head home. I was getting tired and it was starting to get dark. I was making my way up Bangman Road and I was fighting myself to stay awake. The last thing I can remember was passing by a friend's house that sat on the right-hand side of the road. This is where it gets interesting. Just past my friend's house is a hard right-hand turn. I must have dozed for no more than a few seconds when I felt the truck shake from hitting a pothole or something. But by this time, it was too late. I had awoken to see the trees coming at me as the truck was heading straight through the curve. I immediately and instinctively covered my face and eyes with both arms and braced for impact. All of a sudden, I could feel the truck's steering wheel jerk hard to the right, and my head hit the side of the cab just behind the doorpost. I immediately thought I was starting to roll over. But to my amazement, the truck smoothed out and began coming to a stop. I opened my eyes and realized that I was sitting on the road on the other end of the curve. To this day, I can't explain who or how, but something or someone grabbed that steering wheel and turned it to save my life. Very interesting story. What do you all think? Was it his guardian angel? We may never know. Lost, sent in by John. During my summers off as a teenager, I would spend days at a time in the wilderness alone. I would hike to the top of the ridge line a couple miles from my home and set up camp. During my time out, I would hike the same trail to forage for wild edibles, like nuts and berries, and go fishing at a pond about a mile or so further up the valley. I would use the same trail every day from my camp to the pond, never varying. I knew it like the back of my hand, every rock and every tree. But there was this one day in the area about halfway to the pond, I noticed things were different. The trees seemed to be different. The ground was different. It was almost like I was in a different forest, almost rainforest-like. As I stood and looked around, I also noticed that there was no sound, no chirping birds, no squirrels or chipmunks chattering, and no sound of the wind, even though I could feel it and see it in the trees. I became very uneasy and began running blindly back to my camp. Within a few seconds, I realized I was back in an area I knew. I stopped, looked around while catching my breath, trying to make sense of what just happened. The next few days I walked the same trail several times, but never found that area or experienced what I experienced again. So, did he have a time slip? Time hop? Was he transported another time? Or was he just simply lost? I'll leave that up to you. Angel of Darkness, sent in by Frank. This happened to me a couple years ago. I had been feeling very run down for a few days. I got to the point where I had no energy and had a hard time breathing. I started to just want to lay around on the couch. I later found out I was going through congestive heart failure. As I laid on the couch, I started seeing figures walking through the hallway past the living room. As I watched the figures walk past the doorway to my right, I struggled to sit up. Once I was in a seated position, I noticed something in my peripheral to my left. I slowly turned my head to the left, and in my full vision, there it was. I can't believe what it was I was seeing. I can only describe it as a completely black angel. It was shadow black, and it was standing in the corner of my living room. I flinched at the sight of it. When I did, it seemed to flex its wings on its back. I looked away for some reason. When I looked back in the direction where it was standing, it was no longer there. Later the next day, I was taken to the hospital in an ambulance and was told by the doctor that I was lucky that I had been brought to the hospital, because in the condition I was in, I probably wouldn't have made it through another night. So what did Frank see? Was it an angel of death? Was it an angel of hell? Pretty creepy to me. How about you? If you'd like to hear more creepy stories, please leave a comment and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for listening.